I want you to stop for a moment and really think about this. Every breakthrough in your life, every transformation, every moment where you went from struggle to strength, it didn't happen because the world around you changed. It happened because you changed. It happened because something inside of you snapped, a switch flipped, and suddenly you saw life differently. The truth is, your life doesn't transform when you get a new job, when you move to a new city, or when someone finally believes in you. Your life changes the moment you decide to see yourself and your circumstances in a new way. That's the power of a mindset shift. Most people are trapped in the same patterns every single day. They wake up, they go through the motions, and they wonder why nothing new shows up. They're waiting for opportunity, waiting for the perfect timing, waiting for someone to save them. But waiting is the enemy. The moment you shift your mindset from waiting to creating, everything changes. You stop hoping and you start building. You stop blaming and you start owning. That's the shift. When you believe that life is happening to you, you feel powerless. But when you shift to the belief that life is happening for you, every challenge becomes a gift. Every setback becomes a setup, and every pain becomes fuel for your next level. Imagine what would happen if you trained your mind to see problems as opportunities, to see failure as feedback, to see fear as the doorway to freedom. That single shift would open up a life you never thought possible. Listen, success is not about resources. It's about resourcefulness. It's not about what you have. It's about how you think. If you believe you're limited, you'll stay limited. If you believe you're unstoppable, you'll find a way to break through every wall. The difference between people who live extraordinary lives and those who stay stuck isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't even intelligence. It's mindset. So let me ask you right now, what if you stopped telling yourself the story of why you can't and started living the story of why you must? What if instead of saying, I don't know how, you said, I'll figure it out? What if instead of asking, why me, you asked, why not me? That shift is the beginning of everything. You have unlimited potential inside of you, but it only gets unlocked when you demand more of yourself than you ever thought possible. You have to shift from comfort to courage, from excuses to action, from fear to faith. And the moment you do, life will never look the same again. This is the mindset shift that will change your life forever. The decision to stop waiting, stop doubting, stop shrinking, and to start living, start believing, start becoming the person you were always meant to be. Life doesn't change when circumstances change. It changes when your mindset changes. And most people spend their entire lives chasing the illusion that if they could just fix what's outside, if they could just get that job, that relationship, that money, that recognition, then everything would suddenly be different. But the truth is, you already know examples in your own life where you thought a certain achievement would be the answer. And when you got it, yes, it felt good, but the feeling faded because the external will never permanently shift the internal until you learn to master the internal first. The greatest breakthroughs happen not when you rearrange what's around you, but when you rearrange what's within you. Because how you interpret the world determines the world you live in. And two people can face the exact same circumstances, the same obstacles, the same environment, and yet one will crumble while the other rises simply because of the mindset they bring to the situation. The difference is never the external. It's always the meaning they attach to it. Think about this. There are people who grew up with nothing, no resources, no support, no privilege, and yet they built something extraordinary out of their lives, while others who had every opportunity handed to them squandered it. And the difference isn't luck. The difference isn't fate. It's mindset, because when you shift your mind, you change how you see problems. And when you change how you see problems, you change how you act. And when you change how you act, you change your results. That's the chain reaction of transformation. And it always begins with what you believe, because if you believe you're powerless, you'll never take the actions that create power. But if you believe you're capable, if you believe you're worthy, if you believe there is more inside of you, you'll fight, you'll persist, you'll create, and the world around you will bend to that belief. Most people live as victims of their circumstances. They think life is happening to them. They complain about the economy, their upbringing, their boss, their partner, their lack of resources, and they reinforce the story that they are limited. And as long as they reinforce that story, they remain stuck. But the moment someone shifts their mindset from victim to creator, from powerless to powerful, from stuck to resourceful, the entire game changes. Because life responds to the meaning you give it. You can see rejection as proof you're not good enough, or you can see rejection as redirection. You can see failure as the end, or you can see failure as feedback. You can see obstacles as walls that stop you, or as weights that build you. The world doesn't change. It's your interpretation that changes. And that interpretation transforms your behavior and your destiny. This is why two people can go through the exact same storm and come out with completely different futures, because storms don't shape you. Your mindset about the storm does. Your mindset is the lens through which you filter reality, and that lens is either empowering or disempowering, and whichever one you choose becomes the truth you live. So when you say life is hard, you prove it true. When you say a life is abundant, you also prove it true, because your brain seeks to confirm what you believe. It's wired to validate your mindset. So if you walk around saying, I can't, your brain looks for evidence of why you can't. But if you start saying, I will figure this out, your brain begins searching for solutions. You literally program your mind to shape your reality. And once you recognize this, you realize that your circumstances are not in control. Think about the breakthroughs you crave, whether it's in your health, your finances, your relationships, your career. None of them begin with something outside of you. They begin with a shift inside of you, a new decision, a new belief, a new pattern of thought. And from that shift, new actions are born. The person who believes, I'll never get healthy, will sabotage every attempt at fitness. But the person who shifts to, I am becoming healthy, will begin to make small, consistent changes that compound into transformation. The person who believes, I'll never succeed, won't even start. But the person who shifts to, I can and I will, finds a way to persist long enough to create success. It's not the world that's holding you back. It's the mindset you're carrying into the world. When you really grasp this, you stop obsessing about changing everything around you, and you start working on the most powerful lever you have, your mind. Because when you change the way you see yourself, you show up differently. When you change the way you interpret obstacles, you respond differently. And when you change the way you think about what's possible, you act differently. And those new actions create new results, which reinforce your new beliefs. And suddenly you've built momentum in a direction that once felt impossible. The external world finally starts to shift because you shifted internally first. And this is the law of growth, the invisible law that says reality follows belief, not the other way around. So stop waiting for life to hand you different circumstances and start becoming the person who would thrive no matter the circumstances, because that's the shift that lasts forever. Stop waiting for opportunity. Shift from waiting to creating, because most people spend their lives in a holding pattern, thinking that one day something magical will arrive, that one day the timing will be right, that one day someone will discover them, rescue them, or hand them the chance they've been praying for. But waiting is the slow poison of dreams. It keeps you passive. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you living in someday instead of today. And the truth is, opportunity is not a gift that arrives at your doorstep. It is something you generate with your own energy, your own decisions, and your own relentless action. And the difference between those who create extraordinary results and those who live in mediocrity is that the first group stops waiting. They stop outsourcing their future to chance, and they start creating the conditions that produce opportunities instead of hoping they appear. Think about the people who inspire you, the innovators, the leaders, the ones who transform their lives. Not one of them sat around waiting for the perfect moment. They acted in imperfect conditions. They created momentum when there was no certainty. They carved a path where there was none. And because they acted, doors opened. People noticed resources aligned, but it didn't start with luck. It started with creation, because waiting is the mindset of scarcity. Creation is the mindset of abundance. Waiting says, I'll move when something shows up. But creation says, I'll move and make something show up. Waiting says, I need permission. Creation says, I'll give myself permission. Waiting says, maybe one day. Creation says, today is the day. And the moment you shift into that mindset, you spectator and start living like a player in the game of life. The trap of waiting is that it feels safe. Because if you're waiting, you don't have to risk failure. You don't have to step into the unknown. You don't have to put your reputation or your pride on the line. But that false sense of safety is the most dangerous place you can live, because while you wait, time slips away, opportunities slip by, and regret quietly builds. Whereas when you choose to create, yes, you face risk. Yes, you encounter rejection. Yes, you may stumble, but you also set forces in motion that you can't set in motion any other way. Creation unlocks growth. Creation attracts resources. Creation builds resilience. And creation develops the kind of person who is capable of handling the very opportunities you used to wish for. So the question becomes, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for someone to believe in you? Are you waiting for perfect clarity? Are you waiting for confidence? Because confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence comes from action. And clarity doesn't come while you sit on the sidelines. It comes as you take steps. It comes as you make mistakes and learn. It comes as you engage with life instead of waiting for life to deliver a neatly packaged plan. And no one else is going to believe in you until you show them why they should. So if you're waiting for external validation, you'll be waiting forever. But the moment you validate yourself, the moment you decide that your vision is worth pursuing regardless of who applauds, you step into creation. And when you live in creation long enough, the applause eventually comes, the support eventually gathers, but it follows your movement. It never precedes it. Creation is about owning your role as the architect of your future. It's about saying, I will not sit around hoping life will change. I will be the one to change it. It's about generating momentum with small daily actions that compound into breakthroughs. It's about turning every setback into a stepping stone, because when you adopt the mindset of creation, you understand that you don't need to wait for conditions to be perfect. You just need to start where you are with what you have and make progress, and progress generates new opportunities. It creates energy, it expands possibilities, and it attracts people who want to be a part of your movement. Waiting isolates you, but creating connects you. Waiting shrinks your world, but creating expands it. Waiting leaves you powerless, but creating puts you in control. Look back at history, and you'll see this pattern over and over. The breakthroughs we admire never came from waiting. They came from someone daring to create, someone who acted before they were ready, someone who risked being misunderstood, someone who built something out of nothing. And because they created, opportunities multiplied, and the same principle applies to your life right now. No matter your situation, there is something you can create today, a phone call you can make, an idea you can test, a habit you can begin, a skill you can practice, a connection you can nurture, and each small act of creation builds momentum toward the larger opportunities you've been hoping for, but you'll never see them until you stop waiting and start moving. Waiting is the slow death of potential, but creation is the lifeblood of progress, and every moment you hesitate, every moment you delay, you're reinforcing the story that you're not ready, that you don't deserve it yet, that it's not your time. But life doesn't wait, and the people who make the greatest impact are not the ones who had everything figured out. They're the ones who started anyway. They're the ones who created something where there was nothing. They're the ones who kept building when others quit, and by sheer force of will and vision, they turned their efforts into opportunities, and the more they created, the more opportunities flowed to them. So you must decide, will you continue to wait for chance, or will you shift into the mindset of creation and claim the power that has always been within you? Challenges aren't obstacles. They're fuel when you believe life is happening for you, not to you, because the way you interpret adversity determines whether it destroys you or develops you. And most people live in the mindset that every problem is a punishment, every setback is unfair, every difficulty is proof that life is against them. But that way of thinking steals your power. It makes you reactive instead of proactive. It convinces you that you are a victim of circumstance instead of a creator of destiny. And the moment you shift from asking, why me, to asking, what is this teaching me? Your entire world changes, because suddenly the pain you once resisted becomes the very force that sharpens you, molds you, and equips you to handle the life you've been dreaming of. Every challenge carries within it a gift, but most people never unwrap it. They get stuck on the surface, focused on the discomfort, the struggle, the inconvenience, and they miss the deeper lesson, the muscle being built, the wisdom being earned, the character being forged. Think about it. No great achievement has ever come without challenge. No champion has been crowned without facing struggle. No leader has risen without being tested. And the people who achieve extraordinary things are not those who avoided difficulty, but those who learned to use difficulty as fuel. They saw what others called obstacles as opportunities. They recognized that the same fire that can burn you is the fire that can refine you if you step into it with the right mindset. When you live with the belief that life is happening to you, you spend your energy resisting, complaining, shrinking back. But when you live with the belief that life is happening for you, you find purpose in the pain, you find meaning in the mess, you find strength in the struggle, and that mindset turns what looks like an obstacle into a stepping stone, what looks like a wall into a doorway, what looks like the end into the beginning of something greater. The same event that breaks one person can break open another person's potential. And the difference isn't the size of the challenge, it's the meaning you attach to it. Take a moment and think about the challenges that shaped you the most, the times that were the hardest, the seasons that tested you. Those weren't the times you felt comfortable. Those weren't the times everything went your way. Those were the moments where you were forced to dig deeper, to stretch yourself, to grow in ways you never would have if life had been easy. Maybe you went through loss. Maybe you faced rejection. Maybe you hit rock bottom. But looking back now, can you see how those very moments planted seeds of strength, courage, and resilience inside you? Can you see how those chapters prepared you for the life you're living now? And if you can see that in the past, imagine what could happen if you started seeing your current challenges with that same perspective, not as punishments, but as preparation. Life has a way of giving you the exact challenges that will grow the exact qualities you need. If you need patience, life will send delays. If you need courage, life will send fear. If you need resilience, life will send struggle. And when you resist these things, you miss the training, but when you embrace them, you accelerate your growth. And suddenly the very things you once cursed become the catalyst for your transformation. The people who thrive are the ones who stop wishing challenges would disappear and start asking how those challenges can be used. They see every obstacle as raw material, and they understand that greatness is not built in comfort, but in resistance. Imagine going to the gym. If you pick up no weight, you stay weak. If you pick up light weight, you stay the same. But if you push against resistance, your muscles tear, they rebuild, and you grow stronger. Challenges in life are the same. They are weights designed to build you. They are resistance meant to stretch you. And while it hurts in the moment, that discomfort is growth in disguise. Every obstacle you face is an invitation to expand your capacity, to rise higher, to discover more of what's inside of you. And the more you accept that life is happening for you, the more powerful you become, because now nothing can stop you. Even pain becomes progress. Even setbacks become setups. Even failures become fuel. Think about how differently you'd live if you saw every challenge as a gift. If instead of shrinking in fear, you leaned in with curiosity, asking, what is this here to teach me? How is this shaping me? How is this preparing me for the next level of my life? You would no longer be paralyzed by adversity. You'd be energized by it, because you'd recognize that the bigger the challenge, the bigger the growth on the other side. And you'd realize that life isn't trying to break you. It's trying to build you. The resistance you face is evidence that you're moving towards something greater. And the very obstacles you encounter are proof that you're on the path of expansion. The most extraordinary lives are built by ordinary people who decided to see challenges differently. They didn't get less resistance. They just chose to give that resistance a different meaning. They chose to believe that life was happening for them. And because of that belief, they persevered when others quit. They kept building when others gave up. They found possibility where others saw problems. And over time, that mindset carved out results that seemed impossible to everyone else. And you can make the same decision right now. You can choose to stop fighting against your challenges and start using them as fuel. You can decide that nothing is wasted, that everything has purpose, that every struggle is sculpting you into the person you need to become. And once you live from that place, life itself transforms, because you've shifted from being a victim of your story to being the hero of its success. Isn't about resources. It's about resourcefulness, because the truth is people don't fail because they lack money, connections, or perfect conditions. They fail because they lack the mindset to maximize what they already have. And you've seen countless examples of this in life. Someone with nothing who turns scraps into a vision, who turns setbacks into strategies, who takes whatever little they've been given and multiplies it into something extraordinary, while someone else with every advantage, every dollar, every opportunity handed to them squanders it because they never develop the creativity, the hunger, the resilience to make use of it. And that's the difference. Resources are external. Resourcefulness is internal. And it is the internal that determines whether the external will ever matter. Most people think if they just had more money, more time, more support, they could finally succeed. But the people who changed the world didn't wait for those things. They acted with what was in their hands. They tapped into resourcefulness. They asked better questions. They pushed themselves to think beyond excuses. They used imagination instead of limitation, and they found ways where others only saw walls, because resourcefulness is the ultimate resource. It's the fuel that multiplies everything else. And if you develop it, you become unstoppable, because now nothing outside of you has the power to control whether you move forward or not. Think about it. How many inventions, businesses, or breakthroughs were born out of lack? People didn't create out of abundance. They created because they had to. They had no choice but to find another way. And in that process, they uncovered levels of creativity and resilience that would never have appeared in comfortable conditions. The airplane wasn't built because people had unlimited resources. It was built because two men in a bicycle shop refused to let limitations stop them. Countless entrepreneurs didn't start with funding or connections. They started with an idea and relentless drive. And from that resourcefulness, Resources eventually came because resources follow those who prove they can do more with less. When you live believing you need more before you can start, you paralyze yourself. You wait for circumstances to change before you take action. But when you live from resourcefulness, you ask, how can I use what I already have to move forward? How can I turn this obstacle into an opportunity? How can I leverage my skills, my creativity, my energy to create momentum? And that mindset alone separates those who achieve from those who complain. The people who complain say, I can't because I don't have. The people who achieve say, I will because I'll find a way. And life rewards the second mindset with results the first mindset will never touch. Resourcefulness is about persistence. Creativity and adaptability, it's about refusing to take no as final, refusing to let a closed door stop you, refusing to let lack of resources become lack of action. And when you develop this mindset, you train yourself to look for solutions instead of excuses. And every time you do, you strengthen the muscle that makes you unstoppable. Because if you can figure out how to thrive with nothing, then when you finally do have resources, you'll be unstoppable. But if you can't figure out how to move forward with little, no amount of abundance will save you. It will just magnify your lack of discipline and creativity every single day. Life gives you opportunities to practice resourcefulness when something doesn't go your way, when you don't have what you think you need, when you're tempted to stop because conditions aren't perfect. That's your chance to build the muscle, to get creative, to push harder, to think differently. And each time you rise to the challenge instead of shrinking from it, you're proving to yourself that success was never about what you had. It was always about who you are becoming in the process. The person who learns to solve problems without perfect conditions is the person who will be trusted with bigger opportunities, because life, success, and people reward those who can find a way no matter what. Look back in your own life. The breakthroughs you're most proud of probably didn't come when everything was easy. They came when you were forced to dig deeper, when you had to stretch yourself, when you had to find a way to move forward, even though the odds were against you. And those moments didn't just give you results. They gave you confidence. They taught you that you are more capable than you imagine. They proved to you that you don't need perfect conditions to create progress. You just need determination and resourcefulness. And once you carry that belief, every situation becomes winnable because you trust that no matter what comes, you'll figure it out. The truth is resources are temporary. They come and go. Markets shift, opportunities change, support rises and falls. But resourcefulness is permanent. Once you develop it, you can apply it anywhere, anytime, under any conditions. And it will serve you. It will carry you. It will multiply whatever you touch. And that's why the most important shift you can make is to stop obsessing over what you don't have and start mastering how to use what you do have. Because that shift will unlock potential you didn't even know was inside you. It will show you that you've never been powerless. You've only been conditioned to believe you need more before you start, when in reality, starting with less is what makes you great, because it forces you to become the kind of person who can turn little into much. The biggest shift is moving from excuses to ownership, from comfort to courage, because excuses are the invisible chains that keep people trapped in lives far smaller than the ones they're capable of living. Excuses sound reasonable. They sound logical. They sound convincing. But in reality, they are nothing more than stories we tell ourselves to justify staying where it's safe, where it's familiar, where it requires nothing of us. And as long as you hold on to excuses, you give away your power. You place responsibility outside yourself. You say it's the economy, it's my upbringing, it's my lack of education, it's my circumstances. And in doing so, you make yourself a prisoner of things you cannot control. But the moment you shift into ownership, you reclaim your power. You declare that your future is not in the hands of your past or your circumstances. It is in your decisions, your actions, your willingness to rise. And that is the shift that changes everything. Excuses are attractive because they let you off the hook. They give you comfort in the short term, but comfort is the enemy of growth. And if you live for comfort, you will never touch the depth of your potential. Ownership is harder. It demands honesty. It demands accountability. It demands that you look in the mirror and admit that you are where you are because of the choices you've made, not because of what someone else did or didn't do for you. And that kind of radical ownership is uncomfortable at first, but it is liberating, because if you created this reality through your choices, you can create a new one through new choices. If your past decisions led you here, your future decisions can lead you somewhere else. You don't have to wait. You don't have to beg. You don't have to hope. You just have to own the truth that the pen is in your hands. When you make excuses, you live in reaction, always explaining, always defending, always pointing outward. But when you take ownership, You live in creation. You stop defending and you start deciding. You stop explaining and you start executing. And you stop pointing outward and you start pointing inward. And that shift transforms your identity, because ownership is the soil where confidence grows. Ownership is where resilience is built. Ownership is where courage is born. And every time you choose ownership over excuses, you reinforce to yourself that you are capable, that you are powerful, that you are not at the mercy of what happens, but in command of how you respond. Think about the stories you tell yourself. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have support. I don't have the right background. These are the same stories people all over the world tell themselves every day. But the truth is, there are people with less time, less money, less support, less background who are creating extraordinary results. So it cannot be the lack of resources that's stopping you. It is the abundance of excuses. And the moment you strip them away and say, if it's to be, it's up to me, your life shifts. You stop arguing for your limitations and you start arguing for your possibilities. You stop being the lawyer for your excuses and you start being the champion for your dreams. And that shift unleashes action. Comfort feels safe, but safe is the most dangerous place you can be, because it slowly kills your ambition. It numbs your hunger. It seduces you into settling. Courage is terrifying, but it's also where life begins. It's where growth happens. It's where you discover what you're made of. Courage means you stop hiding behind reasons and you start moving despite the reasons. It means you do it scared, you do it unprepared, you do it imperfectly, but you do it anyway, because ownership without courage is incomplete. Ownership says, it's on me. Courage says, and I'm willing to face the discomfort to prove it. And when those two collide, excuses have no place left to live. Look at any person who has achieved something remarkable. They didn't get there by making excuses. They didn't wait until everything lined up. They didn't hide behind fear. They owned their vision. They owned their responsibility. They owned their mistakes. And they had the courage to keep going when everything screamed at them to stop. They traded comfort for growth. They traded excuses for execution. And the reward was a life most people only dream about. The difference between the person who achieves and the person who dreams isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't opportunity. It's the decision to own their future. Instead of explaining why they can't, ownership also means you stop blaming others, because blame is the partner of excuses. Blame says, it's not me, it's them. But as long as it's them, you can't change it. You've handed your destiny to someone else, and that is the ultimate weakness. Ownership says, they may have influenced me, but I decide what I do with it. Ownership says, circumstances may be hard, but I choose how I rise in them. Ownership says, the past may have shaped me, but it will not define me. And that decision gives you back control. It gives you back freedom. It gives you back the steering wheel of your life, because now you are no longer a passenger. You are the driver. The comfort zone is crowded. It's full of people who chose excuses, who chose to play small, who chose to avoid discomfort. But it's also where dreams go to die, where potential goes unfulfilled, where regret grows. The growth zone is empty, because few are willing to pay the price of ownership and courage, but it's where everything you've ever wanted lives. It's where fulfillment is found. It's where the person you were born to be waits. And the only bridge between the two zones is courage, the willingness to own your life and step into discomfort again and again until it becomes your new normal, until you realize that what felt terrifying before is now just the ground you stand on. Excuses will always be available. There will always be a reason to wait, to hide, to delay. But so will opportunities, so will chances to act, so will chances to step up. The difference is which you choose to see, because the person addicted to excuses will never recognize opportunity even when it's in front of them, while the person committed to ownership will create opportunity even where it doesn't exist. And that's the defining shift. It's not about what's given to you. It's about what you take responsibility for and what you're willing to do about it. And once you fully embrace that truth, you will never again let excuses dictate the quality of your life, because you will have chosen ownership over comfort, courage over fear, and power over limitation.